Well, good morning, and thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome and for everybody getting up and out here at 8 o'clock in the morning. Anybody who knows me knows I am not a morning person. So when I was asked to kick off the conference today, I thought, you know what, I got to have a lot of energy. My daughter in the crowd asked me not to use my excited mom voice to get people going, but I'm going to embarrass her from the very beginning, and hopefully we get some great momentum for this amazing day. Look around you. Look at the power of the women in these rooms. We come together today to help us fuel our dreams. And I hope when I share a little bit with you today about how mine went a little bit off kilter, it'll fuel you with some hope and some encouragement. A little bit about myself. I am a businesswoman by trade. I've had a lot of different careers in my life, that from helping other people sell things and build their businesses, to medical advocate. I've had the opportunity to speak, and I was honored to be one of the top 25 women to watch in 2014. I have no idea what I was doing that people watched, but I apologize for anything that you saw that you might not have enjoyed. My most treasured role is being a mom. To my daughters, Carly and Lindsay, and to my two furry dogs. I call them my sons, Ryan and Kramer. So what are we going to do today? Woo! We're going to, the joke is don't break a leg. I have to run a marathon in 3 weeks. That would not be good. So what I'm not going to do today is talk to you about if you work hard and do the footwork, you're going to achieve your dreams. If you just keep swimming like Dory the fish, you'll get there. What I'm going to talk about is what happens when they don't happen that way, when you're rerouted, when life throws you a curveball, how you can get around it and use tools to still find your dreams and maybe ones you didn't know you had. So what is a dream? I always confuse dreams and goals, so I took a minute to look up the definition of the word dream. My favorite was a wild or fancy, unrealistic hope. Really? Okay, if we're all here chasing unrealistic hopes to reach our dreams, we might as well go home. But that's not an option. Doors are locked, by the way. So what I thought was interesting was a strongly desired goal or purpose, because I confused goals and dreams. But when I looked up goals, goals are reaching a destination. It's a predetermined achievement, where dreams have more of an accomplishment. In my mind, I always thought of something ethereal, something that's not achievable. But I've come to realize that they're very grounded and founded if you can utilize different skills along the way to help you get there. So we all have dreams. So everybody in this room who's ever had a dream, please stand up. 8 o'clock in the morning, I won't make you work out, but I am going to get you out of your chairs. So whether your dream, okay, if you were me as a child, you wanted to be a princess. Could have been one, Cinderella with a slipper, could have been Princess Di. I wanted to be a flight attendant. I wanted to fly the friendly skies. I wanted to travel the world. I realized that traveling, but not necessarily as a flight attendant. So anybody now who realized their dreams 100% the way you expected, with no roadblocks or hurdles, please sit down. Oh, I see one person back there. Come see me afterwards because I need to know what you're doing. Obviously, I'm not doing it quite right. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for all standing because you make me feel human. Because we all encounter so many roadblocks, and this time of year, orange barrels. All right. Do one spin before you sit down so I can say I made you exercise. And if you haven't realized your dreams, then take a seat and get ready to learn today how we can do that when the insurmountable jumps in front of you. What happens when you are rerouted? Siri and I don't have a great relationship. Anybody with an iPhone, I have a very nasal voice, so when I talk to Siri, she says amazingly crazy things back to me. And when I hear that phrase on my phone when I'm going somewhere, rerouted, I start to panic. I'm usually late. I am a person who believes that 11:07 is the time Mass starts at my church. And it's not a sign of disrespect. I've come to accept, you'll hear that word later, it is who I am. So But what happens when you're rerouted? You know, when we get on a journey, sometimes we have to take the scenic route. But sometimes that route is not always so scenic. And it's what we do with those orange barrels and what we do with the detour signs that allows us to truly realize what comes next. So my dreams, I mentioned the flight attendant thing. I still love to fly. Tomorrow morning I'll be on my way to Chicago, and I still get excited just going to the airport, even with TSA. But my dreams, so here I am in my 20s. I wanted a family. I wanted to get married. All my friends were getting married. I wanted to be married. I wanted 3 children. I wanted to live in a big house, and I wanted a really big business career. I got all those. By the time I was 32 years old, I had this beautiful family and my little Momo. So got my 3 children. One of them was a little furry, but she did not talk back. So what do you do when you're at the beginning of your life and you have everything that you aspired for? First of all, you thank God. Second of all, you take a deep breath because the likelihood is somewhere along the way something is going to change. And in my world, it did. It started at the beginning of the summer of 2004 when my then 4-year-old daughter uttered the phrase, "Mommy, my leg hurts." When my children today complain of any pain, I will tell you, my heart stops to this day. We would go through a summer of "Mommy, my leg hurts," doctors telling us it was growing pains. Then it would kind of progress into some lethargy, and I always wrote it off with, "Oh, it was a busy day. She's just 4. It's hot outside." Then there was the low-grade fever. Then there was her crying in pain at night that her heart was on fire. So we knew something was wrong. After multiple visits to the doctor, we ended up at Children's with a diagnosis of stage 4 neuroblastoma. It is a very rare pediatric cancer, and it's a word I didn't know. That summer, I prayed it was not leukemia. That's what we know of childhood cancer. I'd never heard of this neuroblastoma thing. But when the doctor looked at us and told us she had a 30% chance of survival, I was rerouted. I went from being a mom of healthy girls and worrying about preschool playdates to becoming a medical advocate, to helping fight for my daughter's life. We went into the hospital the Monday after Labor Day. We were there for 3 weeks. And this is how we left. My little girl was different, and so were we. I didn't choose this journey. I didn't get the GPS and see different routes and say, "Oh, I'll pick that one." This was unimaginable to us. But there came a point where we just had to pull up our bootstraps and say, "Okay, we're going to fight this stuff." And I had this beautiful smile every day looking at me. Children are resilient. Adults, not so much. We have to work hard at it. Caroline had this way of even bringing the nurses and the doctors at ease. They would walk in. A nurse approached her once and said, "Oh, Carolyn, we're going to da-da-da-da, whatever," and she was going to work with her medical line. And she left the room, and I looked at my daughter, and I said, "Okay, you need to tell her your name is Caroline, not Carolyn." It drove me insane. With all the grace of a very adult, I don't know, Mother Teresa kind of woman, my daughter looks at me and says, "Don't you think that would be rude?" She goes, "I don't mind what she calls me. She's just doing her job." And I just thought, well, okay, I've learned a lesson. I've been put in my place. A 4-year-old in medical treatment just showed me how to be graceful under pressure and to accept the situation. I wish I could tell you that it was a horrible journey through cancer, but it wasn't. We smiled. We had fun. We celebrated 65-degree days in December and went to the park and rode on swings. We took trips to Disney World. We got into shaving cream and did things I cannot imagine I would ever do. I like to clean home. I learned that dirty was good. You could clean up another day. We had to accept what we were handed, and we found ways to embrace it. Rerouting doesn't mean that you're not going to end up where you want to be or you're going the wrong direction. It just means that you're on a different path you're supposed to observe. And we did. All right. That one's one of my favorites. If you saw the whole outfit, she was a rock star for her last Halloween, and it was just beyond. It was one of those things where you kind of, as a mother, go, you shouldn't, but in our situation, you said, oh, hell yes, you should. The shorter the skirt, the better, the higher the heels. That's not for you, my 14-year-old who's in the audience. I've alluded to some things. This is a story about rerouting. Caroline passed away after 3 years of battling cancer. She was almost 8 years old. She passed away on August 18th of 2007. I will tell you, I never intended to stay on this earth a day after she left. I couldn't fathom letting go of her. It was beyond comprehension that she would not be here with that smiling face. But then God gave me a choice, another divergence in the road, and he said, you know what? You can be angry and you can have despair and you can let go, or you can have faith and have hope. And that hope came in the form of an angel. My other daughter, she was 5 years old at the time, and it dawned on me, if I left to go be with Caroline, who was with God, I mean, she didn't need me, she had somebody taking care of her better than I ever would, what would come of my 5-year-old? She would know that I chose to go, not to stay, and she would carry that burden the rest of her life. I chose to get up on the 19th and keep going and take one day at a time because of my angel of hope. Wave, angel of hope. That's Lindsay Grace Carter, and I mentioned she is a soon-to-be 15-year-old at CJ. I went to altar, so we're still working that out. There's not always so much hope there. It's a little bit more challenging at this stage, but she was my gift, and it enabled me to choose. When the GPS says you got multiple routes, which one are you going to choose? I chose hope. I also chose not to give her the GPS when you're traveling across the country, because we ended up in the middle of Pennsylvania on some Deliverance Road at 1 o'clock in July. Do not give the teenager the GPS. Just let them text. Keep it simple. All right. God had another interesting plan up his sleeve, exactly 9 months to the day after we buried my Caroline. Carly Caroline Carter arrived. Little did I know, stinking little angel, she went up to heaven and said to God, they're going to need some major help down there. You know what? That angel over there's got everything that they're going to need. She was my 40th birthday present. She arrived 3 days after I turned 40. I don't aspire giving birth 3 days after you turn 40. I was going to be svelte and ready to go, and jewelry. Greatest gift of our lives. What was a horrible day for us, the 18th of every month rolled around, and if you've ever, everybody here I'm sure has lost somebody, that number on the calendar brings with it an ache and a pain before it arrives. Now we look at the 18th as Angel Day. Angels come and angels go. Angels live with you every day, but it's hope. And with that is an acceptance. I didn't ask for this journey. Who would have thought when I rung in 2007 that I would bury and welcome a child in 9 months? But this was my life. It was mine. So my two choices were fight it, swim against the tide, or accept it. Accept the grace of what will come of it. I will tell you, I didn't see grace then. The fact that I'm here sharing with you is part of the grace that came from that journey. There's a reason why there's a curve in the road. If we could see from the beginning of a journey all the way to the end of the destination and saw all the orange barrels and detours, we would never get up and go. We would say, forget that, that is way too much work. Look at all of that. You know, if you could look out your window and see the orange barrels everywhere that you're going to drive today, call in sick. It's that time of year. There's a reason for the curves. It's so that you can focus on where you are. You are exactly where you were supposed to be in any given point of your journey, regardless of what you're aspiring to do, regardless of what dream you came here to learn how to fulfill and achieve. You got to be able to accept the moment For me, presence is a very difficult concept. When I was with my first therapist, she said, you need to be present. And I'm like, I never stop moving or talking. I have a good friend who says I have talkabetes. Not diabetes, I don't have a sugar problem, I have a talking problem. And I never shut up long enough to be present. But I'm learning that if I can just accept whatever moment that I'm on, and if it's a good day and you've made an accomplishment toward your dream, write it down. Write it down. You don't have to journal, but keep a little piece of paper or a book so that when you're having a bad day, you've had a setback, go back and look at the day that you achieved, that you succeeded, that you triumphed over whatever your goal was that day, and it will help you get to the next level of the journey. So, I shared my biggest rerouting of life. Around the corner was another one I wasn't quite ready for. My family had an amazing support network. We had great insurance. I had that wonderful big old job in my 30s, so we had a great savings account. But I didn't work for 6 years, and I was the provider for my family. And my husband was let go a few years into this journey after Caroline's passed away. So we found ourselves having to do some reorganizing. I don't know about you, but when I see the word bankruptcy, I think, candidly, I thought dirty. I was ashamed. How in the world could this happen to me? I've already buried my child. Didn't I suffer enough? I had this sense of entitlement that life hands you one bad thing, you know what? You're free. Get out of jail free card, hall pass, nothing else for you. And I found myself falling into such anger. Remember that road that I didn't choose? Well, it found me later. And I felt ashamed. For me, shame is a feeling that comes from the inside out. It's hot. It took me a while to register what it was. I see people shaking their heads. And I was embarrassed by that. And my therapist said to me one day, Karen, you have choices. If you choose not to take them, then you are a victim. She used that word. She might as well call me a four-letter word. I got angrier and angrier. I am nobody's victim because I have choices. And I choose for my technology to work. Huh. I create presentations. I hate having them delivered. So I was driving to work one day. I had a position with the Leukemia Lymphoma Society where I did a lot of presentations like this to a forum of people who were going to help us raise money. And I had a kickoff down at Fifth Third Field, and I had about 70, 80 people that I was going to present in front of and rally. And I looked at my gas tank, and it was on zero. It was on empty. And I had $35.10 in my checking account. I didn't have any credit cards because I'd been through bankruptcy. My savings was gone. I really had $35.10 to my name, and I needed gas. There's a fear that comes with financial insecurity that brings a panic about me, and it's given me an empathy toward anybody who's had to face that challenge, because it can happen to any one of us on any given day. On that given day, I went down to the Shell station down on Stewart Street, and I knew it was going to cost more than $35 to fill my tank, but I was just going to figure out what can I do to get me down to downtown and back. And I looked down in the console, and there is this little purple puppy wallet. It belongs to my then 6-year-old. It's where she keeps her tooth fairy money. I opened it up, and praise God, there were $11 in that wallet. So I took out the tooth fairy money. I had to walk up to the window to pay because you can't swipe your credit card. Mind you, I don't remember not swiping my credit card. And I was so embarrassed that I had to do that and take my daughter's money that I started making up a whole story to the little clerk inside the gas station about why I didn't have my credit card. Well, you know, I left it in my daughter this and that, and he's looking at me, and you know, he does this all the time. He thinks there's some crazy lady with talkabetes trying to pump her gas. So I gave him the money, and he runs after me with a $1 bill because I paid him too much. And I thought, God bless the gift of people in this world today. And I put the $10 in the car, and I drove away. Nobody at that event that night, knew what I went through to get there. Nobody knew how embarrassed I was. Nobody knew that I had nothing in my checking. Nobody knew the panic that I was going to face the next week trying to figure out how to get my daughter what she needed for soccer. What I gained that night was a humility that I needed. It took all that entitlement. It took what I felt the world owed me to realize I'm no different than anyone else. We're all the same, regardless of what part of our journey we're on. There's just different barrels that throw us off course, and it's having the humility to accept that phase and to be able to, I don't know, give of your heart next time to somebody who you might want to judge. I was famous for looking and making an assumption. 2015 was my year, New Year's Eve resolutions. It was my year of humility, and I chose to focus on where I could be humble throughout that year. Promise you, it is a practice, not a perfection. But one of my greatest gifts through my bankruptcy was learning what was really important. I also learned to ask for help. What a concept! We're all here because we want help. By a show of hands, show me who in this room has been afraid to ask for help for anything. Afraid that somebody might know what you don't know. Afraid that they'll see that you're not the leader you claim to be because there's a kink in your armor. There's a piece that you need to fill in the blanks to be able to achieve your part of what needs to get done. Olympic champion. She didn't just become Simone Biles, for anyone who's not aware. She didn't become a gold medalist at the Olympics just because she's phenomenally talented, gifted, strong. I know that somebody has referred to everyone in this room as one of those things. That's why you're here, because you're talented, you're gifted, and you're strong. But what Simone needed to get there that day was a team. She needed to surround herself with people that were going to energize her, give her tips, not be afraid to say, point your toes. She needed coaches and mentors. She needed family, somebody to put themselves out there to get her to all that training. She needed fans. She needed people to celebrate her from a distance. When somebody compliments you, sends you an email, a note, something that speaks to the credibility of who you want to be, accept it. Accept the help. The opposite of humility is pride, and I get stuck in that sometimes. That's a big thing for me. I don't want you to know I need help. I don't want you to know that I am vulnerable. But vulnerability brings opportunity. When you ask for help, you give somebody else the gift of helping you. How many people here would not help anybody if they asked you? Now, you might not do my laundry or cook me dinner, although they're two things I greatly enjoy having help with. But when you help somebody, even if it's a small bit of giving, the receiving is beyond measure. It was a good thing I learned how to ask for help, because this next rerouting was going to require a lot of it. I kept thinking to myself, well, I survived the unimaginable. I survived losing everything. Along that journey, it took took a big toll on my marriage, as you okay, let's see if I can say this, might imagine. We spent several years in therapy, working together to try to come to terms with the death of our daughter and rebuilding our family. There were some other insurmountable obstacles in our way, and I did not take divorce lightly, but after many years, it became very clear that my soul needed to be freed. If I was going to become the mother and set the example for my daughters as to the type of woman they should become, that there needed to be a change in our life. But I was afraid. I was afraid of the stigma of what divorce is. Nobody aspires to be divorced, but sometimes it's the right answer. I was afraid to take my ring off. Oh my gosh, I love that ring with my whole heart. I took pictures of it. I moved it to the other hand. I didn't want to be a single mom. I didn't want to break up the home of my children. What was I doing to them? But then as I started to look at the situation and internalize pieces, I realized I was the shadow. I couldn't blame him. I couldn't blame anything else. I was standing in front of my sunshine. Fear was gripping me in a way that I didn't understand. So when I decided to make friends with fear, I invited it over to dinner, sat it down, gave it a glass of wine, and we came on one-to-one terms. A very good friend of mine had said to me once, what's the worst possible thing that can happen? What's the catastrophe? Write it down. Draw a picture on it and seriously invite it to dinner. Get to know the worst possible thing that can happen if you try. Once you do that, it's not so scary anymore. Courage is fear that said its prayers. Courage is fear that said its prayers. So when you are afraid, regardless of your religious affiliation or spiritual being, I pray. I pray for God to deliver me to the next place where he feels I should be. And I pray for the willingness to go there without kicking and screaming. I took a leap. I took those steps, and I will not tell you that it was a beautiful journey. I'd say 75% of the fears that I had came to fruition. It was a long year. My attorney said to me, I am a runner, and she said, when did you get really tired in a half marathon? When did your body start to hurt? And at that time, I was like, 8, 9, 10 miles. She goes, we're at mile 2. She goes, you have just begun the journey. I will tell you, today is my divorce anniversary. I am, can you say that, divorce anniversary? It took me a while. I was out running one day. I'm training for my first full marathon. I will run in 3 weeks, if for no other reason than I am crazy. But I saw a sign that says because 26.3 would be crazy. No, 26.2 is nuts. But in any case, it's one of those things where you have to start that one day at a time. And I love this slide because it says she grew her wings on her way down. I left the divorce hearing a year ago, and I was meeting some friends for Bloody Marys and French fries at Tank's. If anybody's been there, you know. That's like, I'm a French fry addict, and so that was a great way to, it wasn't a celebration. I was not celebrating the end of my marriage. I was celebrating the beginning of my soul growing and bringing some peace to my family. And I had a few minutes to kill, and I went to Caroline's place. That's what we call the cemetery. And I sat there and I thanked her. I thanked my daughter for living, and I thanked my daughter for dying. Because if it wasn't for her journey, if it wasn't for that ultimate rerouting in my life, I would have never had the courage to face all of the parts of me and my life that brought me to that point of that ultimate moment. It was self-defining for me. I put myself first. Not selfishly, but I put myself first. And from that, I knew that my family would grow in their own selves. This is my family today. That would be Lindsay Grace Carter, Caroline. Her middle name is Caroline. Carly, and Ryan and Kramer. And one of my dreams was to be a part of a separate family that could be united as one. And on Sunday, we all sat at church together. And we got along wonderfully. We are separate but one. A dream realized. Not a dream I would have chosen, but a dream realized. Told you I'm a runner. I was out running. That's all I do these days. If I'm not working, I'm running. You'll see me on Far Hills. You'll see me in Kettering. I got to run 23 miles on Sunday. Shoot, you'll be seeing me run to Cincinnati. I was running one day, and I listened to devotionals, sometimes podcasts, and there was one that I was listening to, and the pastor was going, who better to support the divorced woman than somebody who's been through divorce? Who better to console the parents of a deceased child than a parent of a deceased child? Who better to support somebody through sexual abuse or through bankruptcy? I literally stopped running in the middle of Oakwood. I stood there in the middle of the street and went, oh my God, I can check all the boxes. And I said it out loud. People thought I was nuts. I can check all the boxes. What I didn't feel was pity or victim or sadness. What I felt was the next step on my journey, which was purpose. It hit me like a lightning bolt. This isn't a dark, sad story of some woman who got dealt the wrong set of cards. This is a story about a woman who was empowered with a life of orange barrels, detours, and one hell of a crazy GPS to give her her purpose. I love to speak. I love to talk. My friends and my family will tell you way too much. I have a big mouth, and I'm not afraid, at least of this. 26.2 miles, maybe a little. But God gave me a way to fulfill my purpose in life, and I didn't know it was here. If I didn't get up and go down the road and experience every single one of the detours, stop, pick up the gifts that they gave me and carry them on, I would never fulfill my purpose. So what I ask you, as you go through today and you encounter one another in the amazing sessions that you'll join in, think about what your purpose is. What do you love to do? And how can the gifts of somebody else and each of your destinations on the journey help you to fulfill your purpose? It may not be the job you're in today, it might not be the dream you have, but how do you know it's not waiting for you somewhere? You just have to be aware to look for it. God's gifts puts man's best dreams to shame. I tell you, God gave me gifts. I'm a famous shopper and returner. I would return them all, but I didn't. I kept them. And they've been my greatest gift. So whether you are stuck in traffic, experience orange barrels, or whether you just want to put the pedal to the metal and fly off the end of the cliff like Thelma and Louise, I know you all do, at least once a day. That's type A people who want to accomplish stuff. I challenge you. What's going to happen when your GPS reroutes you? What are you going to do next? And I hope you embrace the dream. I hope you embrace the unexpected, the detours, to help you achieve your dreams. Because there's one thing that I know, and that is you can. You can. And I thank you.